Hello there guys, RMP792 here. Sorry I didn't do one of these last week, but I have absolutely no idea why not. It was just one of those weeks. So, that means we've got 2 episodes of Discovery to talk about, and since episode 14 is all kind of set up for what happens in episode 15, which is of course the season finale, I think it's reasonable to actually just do them in one biggish vlog. So, episode 13 ended with our crew getting the hell out of the mirror universe, Lorca turning into a comedy villain and then dying with the sound of a TIE fighter. And incidentally, in the episode recap, they show his death again, and it really sounds like a TIE fighter for some reason when he died. Don't know why. So yes, but they get back to find out it's 9 months later and the Federation has lost the war, which made us all go, oh, so they're going to have to do time travel-y stuff to get out of this. Well, no. No, the beginning of episode 14 retcons that to say that, oh yes, they're losing, but they haven't lost. Which isn't what they said at the end of the previous episode, but yeah. Yeah, so Admiral Cornwall and Sarek turn up, and they're a bit twitchy because, well, the Discovery's been missing for 9 months. It's the kind of thing to make anybody paranoid. And Sarek immediately just walks up and mind melds with Saru, which, I'll be honest, given that Enterprise in particular kind of made mind melding with someone without their permission a rape analogy, that's kind of hinky. I mean, let's face it, Enterprise had an entire subplot where T'Pol gets mind melded with by another Vulcan, and ends up picking up what amounts to an STD because he didn't do it properly. And that doesn't get fixed for her until like season 4, because there's this big stigma around anyone who has this disease because mind melding is considered a bit new at this point in Vulcan history. So it's a bit weird to see Sarek just comfortable with walking up and just grabbing someone's head, because the only other person we've ever seen Sarek mind meld with was Picard, and Picard volunteered for that. Because they basically, he basically borrowed Picard's emotional control for a while, long enough to finish what he was doing before he had to retire. Because he was basically losing the ability to control his emotions and was, as a result, becoming he was basically having really horrific mood swings. Which, the thing about Vulcans is they still feel their emotions, they just repress the hell out of them. And Vulcan emotions are actually slightly stronger than humans, and that's not helped by the repression thing. So as a result, if they, when Vulcan emotions do get out, they tend to be kind of aggressive about them. So yes, but anyway, so he confirms, okay, so this is what happened, and this was, that this is the thing. Meanwhile, of course, Giorgio confirms that it was a bloody terrible idea to bring her back from the mirror universe, because the first thing she does when she sees Saru is tell him to get on his knees like a good slave, and reminds Burnham that she ate a Kelpian. Which, seriously, guys, just seriously, I'm not sure why you felt the need to put that in the first place, and reminding us of it, just no. But yeah, so he basically says, right, you, transporter officer, beam her to some quarters and don't bloody tell anybody about this, or it's treason. So yeah, he's kind of right there. Keep it under wraps for now. Figure out what to do with it later. Meanwhile, we finally get to find out what happened to Voq Tyler, and it turns out what L'Rell basically did to him was destroyed the Voq personality, while also effectively, freeing Tyler's mind. So it's Tyler's personality with all his memories, but he's also got all of Voq's memories as well, which you could do some very interesting things with that. As a character who has effectively lived 2 lives and 2 very, very different lives. And he's basically going through a massive existential "oh god, what have I done" crisis. Not helped when, of course, he bumps into Stamets, and Stamets appreciates that it's not his fault what happened, but that doesn't mean he can forgive him. And that's actually it's actually quite a good little scene between the two of them. Again, the actors in this show are actually really, really good, and they are trying their best. It's just whoever came up with the central premise for the show, it needed quite a few more passes through to and they keep putting in stuff that seems to be edgy for the sake of edgy rather than edgy for actually having a point. I mean, let's face it, TOS and TNG were not afraid to be a bit edgy on certain issues, but they usually had a reason to do it. I mean, like Chain of Command, for example, in TNG is a really dark story. Let's face it, it's about Picard being captured and tortured for 45 minutes straight, and they use it basically as as an examination of the human condition and how we deal with stress. And it's a really good two-parter. Void up by the fact that obviously Patrick Stewart is a seriously good actor, and he's acting across from I can picture his face, but how am I blanking on this actor's name? He's in everything. Oh my god, what the hell is wrong with my brain? David Warner. He's acting across from David Warner, and the interesting thing about that episode is actually David Warner was a last-minute replacement for an actor who was unavailable. I think because he'd been in an accident or somebody close to him had died or something like that. There was some very good reason why the actor they'd originally cast to play the role wasn't available. So David Warner was brought in at the last minute, didn't have time to learn his lines, had to read everything off cue cards, and still gives an amazing performance as the interrogator. So that really fantastic episode. And Discovery keeps doing stuff that they think is on par with that and just isn't, basically, is its problem. So, we've got some more scenes throughout that episode of Tyler going into the mess hall and being sort of awkward and on his own, and then Tilly kind of goes over and joins him, and then the rest of the crew sort of follows her lead, and the entire crew kind of following after Tilly it served its function of implying she's effectively become the heart and soul of the crew, while also being incredibly cheesy and a bit over the top. So nice idea, but I think you overplayed it, basically. So then you've got, the Admiral and everybody else meeting and explaining what's going on. And basically, the 24 Klingon houses no longer have anybody unifying them since they destroyed the tomb ship. Which means the problem is they're all trying to outdo each other in the grand game of who can kill the most humans. Which is obviously not good for, humans. Sorry, I'm not wearing my contact lenses anymore, so I had to check how far into this episode I am, because my glasses give weird reflections in the screen. But yeah, so a whole bunch of bases have been destroyed, and Klingons using suicide attacks. Don't get me wrong. I mean, part of Klingon philosophy is today is a good day to die. They are willing to die. They are prepared to die. Suicide attacks aren't usually in their mantra unless there's no other option. Insofar as Worf, on several occasions, will quite happily declare, ramming speed. But that's only after all his guns are offline and he's got no better option. They are willing to die, they don't want to die, is the issue. So I'm not sure if the Klingons would employ suicide attacks, but maybe. Difficult to tell, to be honest. And once again, the USS Saratoga continues to be the just the poor bastard of Starfleet. If you're not aware, every time the Saratoga is mentioned, it's because something horrible has happened to it. So the Saratoga was one of the ships destroyed at Wolf 359. The TNG crew came across it once, and everybody on board was dead. Every time the Saratoga turns up, it's because something bad has happened to it. So here it was, one of the ships that got followed back to its base, and then the Klingons blew the base up. So yes, so the Federation's getting kind of desperate, and they decide to have a chat with Empress Georgiou and try and figure out how she, how the Terran Empire defeated the Klingons, and her attitude is, blew up their homeworld. What? Yeah. What more do you need? Which, I mean, yeah, what eventually causes the Klingons to have to make peace with the Federation is the destruction of Praxis, which is... It's described as a Klingon moon, and my assumption always was that it was a moon of Kronos. I don't know if that's never been confirmed on screen, I don't think. But I suspect supplemental lore has confirmed that somewhere or other. Yes, so, yeah, not going well for them in that regard. But they basically decide, okay, so if we use the spore drive to jump straight into the middle of the planet, because there's some caverns we can jump into, and we can pseudoscience this with the spore drive being able to do it. But of course we don't have any more spores. How do we make the spore drive work? Well, we could just terraform this planet. Can I just be really pedantic about something for a minute? Something that bugs the crap out of me. To terraform a planet means to make a planet more like Earth. You did not terraform that planet, you xenoformed it. Okay? Gotcha. It's a piece of terminology that bugs the bejesus out of me. And yes, I am a pedant. Go away. But anyway, so they in a admittedly very nice piece of special effects, they use his last spore sample, which was basically his first spore sample, and they somehow spread spores over an entire planet. And I'm just looking at it going, dudes, if you could do that all along, why did it? No, okay, I don't care. So they harvest enough spores from that to make the drive work again, and and they've got this plan together. They're going to go in. They're going to map Kronos from the inside, so they can find out where all the important military bases and everything else is, and then they can basically come in and blow them all up, which is a perfectly functional plan, I suppose, if you're going for that sort of thing. How they plan to get through any planetary defenses, I don't know. But then again, spore drive, they can drop in quite low and start shooting before the Klingons know what's happening. So, but yes, and then the episode cliffhanger where Admiral Cornwall basically brings out Empress Giorgio pretending to be Captain Giorgio from the Prime Universe, and basically says she'll be in command of the mission. And I'm just looking at it going, why would you do something that monumentally stupid? I appreciate you're desperate, but putting a psychotic mass murderer in charge of this mission seems like a really bad idea. So yeah, that's basically what happens in that episode. There's a little bit of interpersonal drama with Michael and Tyler, where she basically says that all she can see when she looks in his eyes now is Vogue. And again, it's well acted, but it's a bit overwrought, frankly. I get what they were going for, but and Sarek telling her not to give up on love, and have these people ever actually seen TOS? Because he does not act like Sarek at all. To the point where the prevailing online theory is that sometime within the next couple of years, Burnham is going to die, and that's going to make Sarek a lot more closed off and withdrawn, and more like he is when we actually see him in TOS. So, because Sarek has always been odd for a Vulcan in that he acts on his emotions a lot more, but he doesn't ever show it. Let's face it, even in Star Trek 3, Search for Spock, he admits that when it comes to his son, his logic is flawed. So you only ever get subtle hints with Sarek. And yeah, and this Sarek is not terribly subtle. So yeah. But, so that leads straight into the next episode where, Empress Giorgio immediately gives herself away as Mirror Universe Giorgio to anyone who knows anything about her. And again, this would have been a good chance for helmswoman, whose name I still don't know, to actually, have some dialogue beyond, the generic stuff she always has. Because that would give her a chance to, maybe go to Michael and basically say, what the hell is up with the captain? She's not acting anything like she used to back when we served together on the Xinjiao. Or maybe make that a scene between her and Doug Jones, for example. But no, she continues to do absolutely nothing. As I say, whenever these characters get screen time, it's always incredibly generic stuff. I know nothing about them as people beyond the fact that they know how to push buttons on their consoles. I know more about a lot of the random TNG crew members who are only in like 2 episodes, because at least usually they had some lines of dialogue that gave you a little bit about their personal backstory or their knowledge or whatever. Whereas these guys, they've been in an entire season now. I still know bugger all about any of them. So yeah, that's still a colossal letdown, and I'm really hoping they improve that in the next season. But yeah. So, Giorgio is obviously evil, and yet everybody keeps going along with her because, well, they've been ordered to. So they use the spore drive to jump to Kronos, and I actually realised right at the end of the episode that Stamets has only one line in this finale, and it's over a comlink. When he's basically talking from engineering, or it might be 2 lines. Almost nothing. Over a comlink from engineering, and then he's in pretty much the penultimate scene where where everything's bright and cheerful. So Stamets is kind of wasted in this one. But yes, so Giorgio basically decides that they're going to have to take in a landing party, and they drop some Klingon lore and backstory that they refer to the Klingon warlord who Kahless defeated and killed, which is fair enough. Nice bit of lore nod for anybody who knows it, because they need to find a dormant volcano system so they can drop a probe in and they can use that probe to map the planet, which is fair enough. It's pseudoscience, but hey, it works. And they basically mention that the Orions have a compound which basically looks like a shanty town on the planet, and that they beam to it, and we see some Orions, and they're still being Orions. The Orions are okay. The best way I've heard this described is that Star Trek has a problem with hats, in that once you meet a member of a species, they're utterly representative of their entire species. So, all the Klingons are really big on honor and warrior code, and they're all warriors, and even their lawyers think that studying the law is just another form of combat. And the Ferengi are all a bunch of conniving wheeler-dealer merchants and things like that. And the Orions are a bunch of pirates and slave traders, and all their women are deeply, deeply sexy. This is what this species has going for it as a whole. You actually learn in Enterprise that the women use their pheromones to basically control the entire world, but they like to let the other species think that the men are in charge, because that always makes other species underestimate them, which is an interesting idea that goes absolutely nowhere in this episode. But yes, so it's an interest. They sort of pop around this shanty town, and they sell a few of Captain Lorca's old gun collection, to get themselves a bit of money and give themselves a plausible reason to be there. And they start asking around to try and find the temple. And they, Giorgio's comment is, we should split up because this will go faster. And I'm like, I don't trust her. Again, worst mass murderer in the universe at this point. But so they split up into 2 groups, and Tilly goes with Giorgio. And incidentally, I quite like the scene where Tilly basically greets Captain Giorgio, and she's really happy to meet her, and she realizes it's the mirror universe one. She's just like, oh, bugger. Again, when they first introduced Tilly in episode 3, I thought I was going to hate her, but she's actually grown on me a lot over the course of the season, so kudos there. I mean, she's the only character in the show who's actually done that. The rest of them, my initial impressions were pretty much on the nose, but hey, at least you got one quite good character out of it. But yeah, so they split up, and then Giorgio decides she's going to go off with a couple of Orions, and have herself a good time. And this reminded me of a trope. Why is it that whenever you see somebody doing something like that, basically, getting a couple of people in for a threesome, they're always evil. There's literally only one example I can think of where the person isn't a bad guy, and that's an example from Game of Thrones, where almost nobody is a good guy. That's Oberyn Martell. And it's one of those things that bisexuality equals evil in the media, I seem to have noticed. It seems to get used as a shorthand for, lacking morals, which... No. Bad Star Trek. That's bullshit. So either way, Georgiou takes a couple of Orions off, and they have a bit of a boink, bit of a chat, and then she basically threatens to kill them if they don't give her the information she wants. Which, fine, it's not a great scene, to be honest. I mean, stylistically speaking, it didn't particularly like that bit. But, meanwhile, you've got Tilly getting distracted by some dude who's going to have her thrown out unless she inhales some weird vapors. And Tilly, don't do that. Just don't do drugs, kids. But she does. She basically passes out, and she wakes up a couple of minutes later when he's trying to cut the probe off her wrist. Which, again, given the look of that knife and the fact that he's clearly got very few morals, you'd think he'd just cut her hand off. But, anywho. But, he then basically mentions that the volcanoes are active, at which point Tilly thinks, well, hang on a minute, the probe would be destroyed instantly if it was an active volcano. What the hell am I carrying? Opens it up, and of course it's a bomb. Which everybody saw coming, because, again, Georgiou is evil. It's the mirror universe where everybody is evil. But, yes, so... dear. Yeah. Meanwhile, you've got Michael and Tyler, popping around, and Tyler taking advantage of the fact he speaks Klingon, which, as he says, they find a human talking Klingon amusing in the same way that, you would find a dog water skiing funny. Which is why they're sort of letting him play around, because it's funny and it's kind of cute. Which, okay, I can get behind that as a basic idea. So he plays some Klingon game that's never been mentioned before, and I have no idea what it was, but yeah. So and then he goes to talk to a couple of religious people, and we get some more back and forth on the personal stuff between them, and it's all fine. It's with the kind of, he doesn't really know who he is anymore kind of stuff, which, But yes. And then, of course, Tilly basically contacts them and says, oh God, I've just woken up. It's a bomb. Because Georgiou at that point has, socked her in the face and taken it. And again, if Georgiou was acting the way Georgiou should, she'd probably have killed her. Because, why wouldn't she? Yes, so they then take, So Georgiou's basically gone to the shrine to drop the bomb into the planet because, apparently it's a big enough bomb that if they detonate it, deep enough down, it'll cause massive tectonic activity and basically, anything directly over the explosion site will die pretty much instantly, and the rest of the planet will be choked off, and everybody will die within, a few weeks sort of thing, which basically it's Armageddon. It's doing what the asteroid strike from Armageddon would do, except, they do at least have spaceships, so some of them would survive. So we actually see Kronos explode, and then it's revealed to be a simulation, which, I'll admit, they got me with the fake out. I was just looking at it going, okay, now they're really going to have to use time travel to sort this plot out, and simulation. Oh, okay, fair enough then. But yeah, so they contact the Admiral and they're like, seriously, come on, Starfleet values and stuff. And yeah, the fact that Starfleet has to hold up its values even in times of war is a good message. I just wish the show had actually built up to it in some way rather than just jumping around and the theoretical bookending of this show with 2 mutinies, or this season with 2 mutinies, was a fine idea. It's just been lazily executed. So, they beam back to the temple, and Michael goes in and has a bit of a chat where it amounts to, you want to do this, you're going to have to kill me first. And Giorgio just decides not to do it for some reason, and then decides she's just going to bugger off because she's been granted her freedom by the Federation, and she leaves. And obviously she's going to turn up again at some point. Letting her wander around the galaxy strikes me as a very bad idea. But yes, they decide that the best person to give the trigger that can destroy all of Kronos to is L'Rell. On the grounds that Klingons appreciate strength, and the strength to blow up the planet is pretty big strength. So I think the implication of that scene where she basically goes before the 24 houses, I think she's meant to be forming the High Council. Because later on we see in Klingon politics, you basically have the High Council, and you have the Chancellor. And later on you also get the Emperor. But by that point... But the Emperor is a clone of Kahless, and it's a purely symbolic position, which is Picard's compromise to, you're an empire. Having an emperor is not a bad idea, but if you leave it as a purely symbolic position that's only designed to, bring hope to the masses, what harm does it do? Kahless Reborn basically ends up in the same position that our Queen is. Supposedly has power, but is mostly just a figurehead. For the record, if you're American and you think the Queen actually is responsible for anything in this country, no, she's not. Not in any meaningful sense. I mean, technically, a thing doesn't become law until her signature is on it, but in her entire reign, she has never failed to sign something Parliament put in front of her. And whether or not she actually would, don't know. It's never happened. Probably never going to happen. So, yeah. Because it would cause a constitutional crisis if it happened, and nobody wants that. Yeah, so I think L'Rell's meant to be forming the High Council there. And, and that basically ends the war. Because, she decides that, fighting humanity did not work the way, T'Kuvma intended. It wasn't the big unifying force that he intended it to be, and they need to find something else. So, the Klingon ships all retreat, and the Klingon Empire and humanity clearly enter a bit of a Cold War, and that's going to go on basically until the Praxis incident. At which point the Klingons have to accept that they need help from outsiders, and then we head into the TNG era. So it sort of works without completely bollocking up the timeline, but it's still a bit jank, is what I will say. And the fact that the cranial ridges and the redesign, and the fact that Enterprise explained that, and now it's been unexplained, and now we're going to have to... Because we're Star Trek nerds, we have to explain everything to ourselves. But yes, so... yeah, and Tyler basically decides, since he's neither really human nor really Klingon anymore, maybe he can do some good for both. By going with L'Rell and presumably becoming, maybe an ambassador, or maybe a kind of a bridge between the two species. In much the same way that at the end of DS9, Worf becomes Starfleet's official ambassador to Kronos, on the grounds that A, he's pretty good mates with the new Chancellor, and B, he's been a member of Starfleet for a long time, and he can represent the Federation while also being, somebody the Klingons would accept. So it's not about, him acting as a bridge is not a bad idea, though it does mean that half the main cast of the show have now gone. Insofar as main crew members left, we've basically got Michael, Saru, Tilly, and Stamets. And that's it. Of the theoretical main cast of the show. Everybody else has buggered off in one way or another. So, I'd be interesting to see where they go with Season 2. I'm hoping with Season 2 they're actually going to try and be a bit more Star Trek. We will see. But yes, so, with the war over, they all go back to Earth and they get some shiny medals. They get Starfleet's Medal of Honor, which, don't know if they have... Starfleet's medals are always a slightly janky issue because there's all sorts of... There are many medals within Starfleet, and they're kind of really inconsistent. Because, for example, we know that later on they'll have the Christopher Pike Medal of Honor, Medal of Valor. which is I cannot for the life of me remember which of the characters has that, but yeah, which is obviously named after Captain Pike of the Enterprise, and he got that after the events of the Menagerie. If you're not aware, the Menagerie is a TOS two-parter where they basically needed to save money. They basically needed to produce an episode for almost no money. So what they did was they made a two-part episode where they used the footage from the unaired pilot The Cage, where the captain was Christopher Pike, and they basically said, okay, this is stuff that happened before Kirk took command. Pike was the captain, Spock was the second officer and science officer, and then when Pike moved on to a new assignment, Spock was promoted to first officer and Kirk was given the ship. So they basically splice in footage from the unaired pilot into the Menagerie as effectively flashbacks, and they basically got 2 episodes out of what was originally 1, with some stuff spread out. But the reason for that is basically that Pike has been critically injured in some sort of accident. Basically, it's a case of he was running a training flight for some cadets. Something went wrong. There was some sort of radiation leak or something like that, and he basically went in and got all those cadets out alive. But in doing so, he was exposed to, God knows what, and he's now sort of paralytic and in a wheelchair. If you've seen the thing with the weird beepy wheelchair, that's Pike. And the only way he can communicate now is through beeps, which kind of sucks. It's actually a really good, really good 2-part story that does some interesting things with Spock and establishes he does have loyalty to Pike as well as to Kirk. But yes, so we've got a nice medal ceremony where Tilly has been promoted to ensign because, of course she has. I'm assuming that her time of discovery was basically meant to be a midi cruise. If you're not aware, the basic principle of a midi cruise is you're a cadet or a midshipman or whatever you care to call it, and before you are officially classified as an ensign and officially an officer, you basically have to go on at least one cruise. I'm bad. Okay, I think I'm good. Don't think I'm going to do that again. But yeah, so you have to go on one before you're actually allowed to be a proper ensign, to prove you can actually hack it, which makes a certain amount of sense. It's basically a kind of final training and assessment thing. And, Tilly has done a hell of a job here, so yeah, absolutely promote that girl to ensign. And, they've accepted her onto the command training thing, which, not sure how Starfleet works in that regard, but, oh well. But yes, so, we have a nice little medal ceremony, and, they name drop all the main cast. Except, and again, we see the primary extras there, but they don't say their names, which prime time to remind us what the names of any of these people are. And Michael's giving a bit of a speech, and it's not a bad speech. And again, my spine got a little tingly when she mentioned exploring new worlds and seeking out new civilizations, because those words will always get to me. I'm surprised they didn't work out, to go boldly where no man has gone before, or where no one has gone before. But they didn't. And they basically say, well, we're going to go to Vulcan to pick up your new captain, which, okay, we're going to get a Vulcan captain, or is it just somebody who's on Vulcan, or why don't you just let Saru have the damn captain's chair? At this point, he's kind of earned it. And they basically say, as a result of what she did here, she's proved that she can hold up Starfleet's ideals. So congratulations, you're out the doghouse. Have your old rank back. So she's now officially, Commander Burnham again, rather than being Specialist Burnham. So yes, they're on their way to Vulcan with Sarek on board because they're giving him a lift since they're going that way anyway, which is fair enough. Being an ambassador has to have some privilege. And they leave Amanda behind on Earth because she's staying in Paris for a bit, which is fair enough. And then they get a distress call. And I'll freely admit, when they basically said, I'm getting a partial registry, NCC, and I just look at it and go, it's going to say 1701. It's going to say 1701. And then it, cuts away, and I'm like, it said 1701. You could have just shown that. And yes, and they basically reveal that it's a distress call from the Enterprise under the command of Captain Pike. And obviously Michael and Sarek both know that obviously Spock is serving on board. So yeah, the final shot of season 1 has the Discovery, directly opposite the Enterprise. And I'll freely admit, they've done a good job with the Enterprise. It looks like the Enterprise. I was worried that they were going to lean more into the reboot design, but no, this looks like the Enterprise. It looks the way it should. And yeah, kudos to the special effects team. That was a really, really nice shot. You did a really good job building that model. It's got a few more glowy bits on it. Sort of slightly more in line with a slightly TNG aesthetic with glowing lines along the nacelles, but that's fine. It looks like the Enterprise, and that's all that really mattered there. But my immediate comment on seeing that was, the casting department's going to have fun with this. Because here's the thing, when it comes to Pike, not many people, relative to the audience, know that much about Pike. Let's face it, he was only in the original Unaired pilot and in the Menagerie. So with Pike, you've got a lot of leeway with casting. You can go a lot of ways. That's fine. With Spock, I do not envy the casting department. I mean, I've already heard lots of people say, well, they should get in Zachary Quinto, which would sort of make sense, but would also kind of tie it to the J.J. Abrams reboot, so I don't know if that's a good idea, or what. I don't know what they're going to do with it. I do not envy the job of the casting department on that one. Same goes for number 1. Because in the original Unaired pilot, the first officer of the ship did not have a name. She was only ever referred to as number 1. And she, of course, was played by Marjol Barrett, who is widely regarded as the first lady of Star Trek, since she was Gene Roddenberry's wife. Okay, she wasn't at that point, but she was later. They were, seeing each other at that point. And let's face it, Marjol Barrett was the voice of all the computers across all of Star Trek up to this point. And, of course, she passed away, a couple of years ago now. But the thing is, prior to that, she actually recorded her voice phonetically, which she did with the express purpose that if they ever did another Star Trek show, they could continue to use her voice for the computers. And yet in Discovery, they didn't bother. Why would you do that? She did it on purpose so that you could. Anyway. But yes, and so that's where we leave off, with so we're actually going to see Michael meet Spock, presumably at the beginning of the next season, unless they're going to do the old trick where, we need help because our first officer's stuck on some planet and you can't see him. Or our second officer, sorry. Because he's only second officer at this point. But yeah, so we'll see. So yeah, overall, Discovery has not felt at all like Star Trek. It's felt very, very uneven. It's had some good ideas, but the execution has been extremely dodgy. And overall, I'm curious to see where they go with the second season. Because here's the thing. The first season of every single Star Trek show, with the exception of the original, sucks. It really does. And the original, the first season of TNG, of TOS, is mostly bad. A lot of it does not hold up. It's got some good episodes, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of bad in there as well. First season TNG is borderline unwatchable. Again, some good episodes, mostly crap. And again, first season of Voyager, mostly crap. First season of DS9, better than the rest, but still not good. So, first season of Enterprise, mostly unwatchable crap. So, I'm willing to give it time to find its feet, hopefully for it to get a bit more like Star Trek, Give us a few more, more standalone episodes and less, more focus on character interaction and big philosophical ideas, because that's ultimately what Star Trek should be about. I mean, my favourite episode of TNG is Measure of a Man, which is entirely a courtroom drama based around does Data have a soul to all intents and purposes? Because the entire point, I should do a proper vlog on Measure of a Man and why I like it so much at some point, but a broad overview is basically a guy wants to come in and try and take Data apart in order to build more Datas. He wants to create more. because he thinks they could be very useful for the Federation. And Data doesn't want to do it because A, this guy's kind of incompetent, and he thinks if he lets him take him apart, he might not be able to put him back together again. And Data does not want to take part in this experiment. And they get into a legal challenge over it, where this guy basically argues that because Data isn't alive, he's technically property, and therefore he can no more refuse this than the main computer could refuse an upgrade. So they get into a courtroom drama about it, with Picard defending Data's rights as a living, intelligent being, and it's a really fascinating episode. It's my favourite episode of TNG. So I want Discovery to do more of that sort of stuff, big philosophical ideas expressed through science fiction, because that's what Star Trek always did best. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. I think that's all I've really got on the big sort of episodes 14 and 15. But yeah, Discovery as a whole has been a mess, but it's a mess that has potential. The cast is still absolutely top notch, fabulous, and if they can shore up the writing a bit and just and be more Star Trek, we could have a really, really good show here. And I think that's what I've got. So, yeah. Oh god, next week I'm going to have to think of something to talk about that isn't Star Trek. Bugger. Oh well. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in future vlogs.